Final Fantasy IV, considered by many fans to be one of the best games in the franchise, it brought the series to new heights. The Final Fantasy series has a long history and has produced numerous beloved titles, each with its own unique qualities and fan following. Many fans hold Final Fantasy VI, VII, and X in high regard for their storytelling, character development, and innovative gameplay. Final Fantasy VII in particular achieved significant popularity and critical acclaim, becoming a cultural phenomenon upon its release. Additionally, some fans have strong attachments to other entries in this series, such as Final Fantasy IX, Tactics, or even earlier games like 4 and 5. While the best Final Fantasy game is ultimately subjective and can vary depending on personal preferences, nostalgia, and experience, we're going to discuss what made Final Fantasy IV so special. Now, I want to preface this by saying I've never played it before, but I've been constantly hearing from fans how FF4 and 6 are must-play games. So, join me as we uncover its wonders and challenges. I'll be 100%ing the game, watching every cutscene, critiquing its characters, story, and gameplay, all while going for that juicy platinum trophy. So, let us embark on this epic quest and discover the answer to this simple question: Final Fantasy IV, was it any good? Developed and published by Square Enix, Final Fantasy IV takes us on an unforgettable journey filled with magic, mystery, and awe-inspiring characters. It's a role-playing masterpiece that stands a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of its creators. But what makes Final Fantasy IV truly remarkable? Well, let's start with its captivating storyline. Prepare to be swept away by a tale of redemption, sacrifice, and the struggle between light and darkness. As we follow the protagonist Cecil on his transformative journey from a conflicted Dark Knight to a noble Paladin, we witness the evolution of his character and impact it has on the world around him. Our tale begins with Cecil, the captain of the Red Wings airship fleet, who is torn between loyalty and justice as he invades the town of Mysidia. The king ordered Cecil and his men to take the water crystal from this peaceful town, killing any innocents who get in their way. Things take a dramatic turn when Cecil questions the motives of his king and the path he's been following, and as a result, Cecil is relieved of his duties by the King of Baron after he confronts him for the reasoning behind the attack on Mysidia. The king then sends him alongside Kain on a quest to deliver a package to the village of Mist. Following that is a chain of events that sets Cecil and his friends off to save the world from the hands of Golbez before he retrieves the remaining crystals and causes the destruction of the world. The intro to Final Fantasy IV sets the stage for the story's conflict and establishes Cecil's initial role as a conflicted protagonist caught between duty and its own moral compass. As he embarks on a quest to uncover the secrets behind his kingdom's actions, Cecil's journey evolves into a deeply personal tale of redemption and self-discovery. Along the way, he meets an array of intriguing characters, each with their own unique story. One of Cecil's closest allies is Rosa, a talented white mage and an unwavering source of support. She's not only an exceptional healer, but also shares a deep bond with Cecil. Her unwavering loyalty and magical prowess make her an invaluable asset to the team. And let's not forget about Sid, the genius engineer and airship creator. Sid provides a much-needed technical expertise and gadgets throughout the journey. His inventions and mechanical prowess will prove vital in overcoming obstacles and reaching distant lands. But the party doesn't stop there. From the summoner with the tragic past, Rydia, and the wise sage Tella, to the powerful dragoon Kain Highwind, each companion adds depth and complexity to the story, making for a truly immersive experience. The development of Final Fantasy IV, known as Final Fantasy II in America, was a significant milestone for the Final Fantasy series. After the success of Final Fantasy III, the development team at Square wanted to create a game that would push the boundaries of storytelling and characterization. Series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi and his team sought to develop a more character-focused narrative with a greater emphasis on drama and personal growth. Final Fantasy IV was the first game in the series to be developed for the SNES, which provided enhanced graphical capabilities and audio quality compared to its predecessors. The move to the SNES allowed for more intricate sprite designs, detailed environments, and larger game worlds. Final Fantasy IV was released in Japan in 1991 and received critical acclaim for its stories, character, and gameplay innovations. It was praised for its cinematic presentation, well-developed cast, and the introduction of the active time battle system. The ATB system would return in the next 5 games, as well as making appearances in other Square games, including Chrono Trigger. The game's success in Japan led to its localization and release in North America as Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy IV had a long-lasting impact on the RPG genre and the Final Fantasy series as a whole. It set a new standard for storytelling and character development in video games. The game has since received various remakes and re-releases, including the recent Pixel remaster and a 3D remake for the Nintendo DS in 2007. That introduced updated graphics, voice acting, and additional content. There was also a sequel called The After Years that originally released in 2008, and later the Nintendo DS versions were ported over to other platforms. It became available for iOS and Android in 2012, and for PC later in 2014. These versions retained the 3D graphics and added some additional features such as achievements and enhanced visuals. It's worth noting that the 3D remake of Final Fantasy IV differs from the original game in terms of visual style and gameplay mechanics. The remake provides a fresh experience while staying true to the core story and the characters of the original game. While the 3D remake does maintain the core story and characters of the original, it also adds significant visual enhancements, expanded storytelling, and gameplay improvements. These changes provide a fresh and updated experience for both new players and those familiar with the original version. 3D remake is worth playing eventually, but I would still recommend playing the Pixel remaster first, which is what I'll be playing, as it's even more faithful to the original. I definitely plan on playing the 3D remake later though. Compared to the original, however, the Pixel remaster has some changes. Besides the quality of life features shared with the other games in the Pixel remaster series, like a map with a treasure tracker, quick saving inside of dungeons, auto-saving on each floor, and unlimited inventory space, there are a few more benefits to be aware of. You get a map at all times. I find it so funny that in FF3 and 4, you had to eat gnome bread or use the sight spell to show the map. The experience level requirements are cut in half, so it makes this version of the game much easier than the others. It gives you access to more spells earlier, and you can even speed it up more by turning on the 4x XP or guild boost. As for the gameplay, the jobs are gone and the characters each have a set, permanent class. The classes are well defined with unique abilities and equipment sets. Spells, for those who can use them, are learned naturally through leveling, no more having to go to the shop to buy them. It follows the standard set by the previous entry, FF3, but new to this entry, and becoming the standard for most games to come, is the active time battle system. This is where it all began, the system that so many classics would use. The ATB system is represented by a bar that fills out automatically. It determines when your party members get a turn to attack or do other actions, and at the same time, enemies also take their turns following the same rules, in turn making the battle system more engaging. The recharge speed of the ATB gauge is determined by the character and game speed. By default, the game uses the active ATB mode, in which time moves on even if you're navigating item menus. There's also a wait mode, which stops time while navigating menus. MP is back, and you learn spells automatically instead of buying them at town shops, making magic a little easier to implement into your battles. They also added tents back into the game to restore your party, thank God. Phoenix Downs are super cheap, being only 100 gil. They were way more expensive in the previous games. You can rename your characters in the game at any time using the naming way NPCs in pretty much any town. I wish they did this in all the games. They also added save points in the middle of dungeons so you can rest up with tents and whatnot, which was very useful. As for the characters, they have their own distinctive capabilities in battle. To take some examples from the beginning of the game, Cecil, the Dark Knight, is a fairly balanced character with strong physical attacks and a special ability that allows him to hit all enemies at the cost of some of his health. Kane the Dragoon is more defensive. He doesn't have as much offense as Cecil, but he can use Jump, which allows him to inflict double damage with spears. Rydia, the Summoner, is quite versatile. She can cast either white or black magic and also summon creatures. However, she is a bit squishy, so being in the back row is a must for her. Tella, the Sage, he can also cast both white and black magic, but due to his age, he can't remember most of his spells, which is pretty funny. And so on and so forth. Each character brings their own unique benefits to the party, but of course, some are better than others. One of the biggest changes is that you can now have up to 5 party members instead of 4 like the previous games. However, you cannot choose who joins your party. You're up to the discretion of the game's story to put party members in your party. So depending on where you are in the story, you'll have different characters joining. As for the rest of the gameplay, it's basically the same as the previous 3 games. It has an overworld with dungeons that are mostly explored just playing through the story. There are random encounters and airships and even a new hovercraft to access certain areas as new zones are unlocked throughout the game. There's a good amount of optional content as well, such as unlocking new summons or obtaining the most powerful gear, but it's still mostly just about going through the story. It is worth noting that the bonus dungeons from the GBA and iOS versions of the game are not present in the Pixel remaster, so it's technically not the definitive version of the game, but it is a very good upgrade. Now for the trophies. The Pixel remaster added achievements and trophies to obtain, and because Square made these so easy to get, I'll be going for the Platinum trophy for 100%ing the game. I'll also be going into a little more detail about the story as we get them. This game has 30 trophies and is estimated to take about 30 hours with a 3 of 10 difficulty, quite a step up from the previous 3 games. The first trophy we get is for completing the intro to the game. Inflammatory Decisions. Accidentally destroyed the village of Mist. At the beginning of the game, after Cecil attacks Mysidia and takes the water crystal, he questions the king's true intentions and is relieved of his duties as the captain of the Red Wings. As a result of this demotion, the king sent us along with Kain to the village of Mist to slay a phantom dragon and deliver the bomb ring. Cecil, not wanting to anger the king anymore, doesn't question what the bomb ring is for and reluctantly agrees as they march down to Mist to fight the beast. We defeat the dragon guarding the town, and as soon as we step into town, the ring starts glowing and releases bombs that set the village on fire. Cecil is somehow shocked that a bomb ring would release bombs, and we come across a little girl and her late mother. It turns out the phantom dragon that we slayed earlier was her mother, who was a summoner protecting the town, and we unknowingly killed her under the king's commands. The girl's name is Rydia, and she reminded me of Aiko from FF9, so I named her that. Rydia is rightfully mad at Cecil and Kain and summons Titan to attack us and kick us out of town. Unfortunately, using all that power causes her to pass out and we get separated from Kain, so we save Rydia and the trophy pops. Next, we get Apprentice, Experienced, and Legendary Warrior for defeating 100, 500, and 1000 monsters respectively. The next one we get is the Lights Chosen for climbing Mount Ordeals and becoming a Paladin. After the tragedy at Mist Village, we learn that the King of Baron has gone haywire and is on a quest to obtain every crystal so that he can rule the world. Each crystal is protected by a kingdom and they already have the crystal we got from Mysidia. It turns out the king is being mind controlled by someone named Golbez, who is the new Red Wings fleet commander after Cecil was demoted, and he's on his way to Demecia next to take the water crystal. Along the way, we meet a couple of new party members. The first one is Tella, an elderly sage seeking revenge for his daughter Anna, who ran off to live with her fiancé, which is our next party member, Edward the Bard, who is also the Prince of Demecia, the kingdom protecting the water crystal. He joins us after Golbez attacks his kingdom and kills his fiancé, who, like we said, is also Tella's daughter. And because of this event, Tella hates Edward and calls him a spoony bard as he attacks him. Then we meet back up with Rosa, a skilled white mage who is also Cecil's love interest. And lastly Yang, a monk from the kingdom of Fabul, whose home was also attacked by the evil Golbez. After we meet Yang and Fabul, we get attacked by Kain the Dragoon, who was Cecil's best friend and also the one who helped us in the village of Mist. Kain reveals that he is working with Golbez, kidnaps Rosa, and takes the crystal. The King of Fabul gives us a ship to go back to Baron to rescue Rosa, but Golbez summoned Leviathan to destroy our ship, and we get separated from the rest of the party. We arrive in Mysidia, the same town we invaded from the beginning of the game, and they remember us. They call us names, and this guy even curses Cecil and turns him into a pig. We speak to the elder of the village to ask for forgiveness, but he wants nothing of it. We explain that we're no longer under the order of Baron and its king, and that we want to help. He said that we'll have to prove ourselves first by leaving behind the dark side and becoming a paladin, and to do that you have to complete a trial at Mount Ordeals. He assigns Polam and Parom, two twin apprentice mages, to join us and also to spy on us. I love these two characters, they were really funny and also very powerful. They can use twin casts to cast a spell together for huge damage. And so we head together to the mountain and meet back up with Tella at the top, who is trying to learn meteors so he can use it on Golbez and get revenge for his daughter. At the top of the mountain though, we encounter Scarmillion, the elemental lord of the earth, and then face our own shadow to finally leave the dark side behind and become a paladin. And the trophy pops. After that, we get a few more easy ones for collecting 10k, 100k, and 500k gil respectively. And next we get Overcoming Grief for defeating Cagnazzo, the Lord of Water. After we finally make our way back to Castle Baron, we run into Yang again, who has been mind controlled by Golbez and attacks us on sight. After we knock some sense into him, he snaps back to reality and joins us. We then meet back up with Sid, the chief engineer of Baron, who gives us an airship. We then confront the king of Baron, who reveals himself as Cagnazzo, the elemental lord of water. He says the real king is dead, and he has been impersonating him this whole time. We defeat him, but unfortunately for us, it was a trap. The walls around us start moving in to crush us, but the quick-thinking twins turn themselves into stone and block the walls from crushing us. Unfortunately, since they willingly casted stone on themselves, we can't just use Asuna to dispel them, and we're forced to leave them here. This legitimately made me sad. I miss having them in the party, because not only were they so powerful, they were just fun to have around. Sid joins the party in their place, and we return to the airship. By the way, Sid's portrait in the menu is so fucking funny, I was just cracking up when I saw it. After that, Kane confronts us and tells us to fetch the Earth Crystal and Troya for him and Golbez in return for giving Rosa back. Cecil is beyond furious, but reluctantly agrees because he will do anything to get Rosa back. So, we set sail for Troya, and the trophy pops. During my playthrough, I got these two trophies for completing 10% and 50% of all the bestiary entries. This time around, there's only 197 bestiary entries, but there are many missable ones. Next, we get Reforged Love for defeating Barbara, the Lord of Wind. We arrive in Troya, a kingdom ran by only women. We reunite with our bard Edward, who is here bedridden and being taken care of by the denizens of Troya. While he cannot join us right now, he does give us a gift to help us, which is a magical harp he can use to play music from remotely, even when he's not with us, and that'll come in handy later. We speak to the 8 clerics ruling over Troya, and they tell us that a dark elf stole their earth crystal, and they promised if we can defeat him and get their crystal back, then they'll lend it to us so we can rescue Rosa. They tell us the dark elf is located on the north side of the magnetic cave. We can't use any metallic gear in this dungeon, so we're stuck using magic, bows, and fists. We fight our way through the dungeon until we encounter the dark elf, and he wipes our party in one fell swoop. I thought my party just wasn't ready for this part of the game yet, but it turns out this battle is scripted to lose. But fortunately, Edward's spidey senses start tingling, and he recognizes we're in danger. And the magical harp Edward gave us allows him to play it from afar and take out the Dark Elf's magnetic power, giving us an opportunity to strike. Ironically, this boss is weak to metallic weapons, which we can now use our normal weapons and take him out. We get the Earth Crystal back and make our way back to Kane and Golbez inside the Tower of Babel to trade them for Rosa. The Tower of Babel is a massive structure that is both in the Underworld and the Surface World, and as soon as we arrive at the Tower of Babel, we're confronted by the powerful Magus Sisters. This is the first game they appear in. You may remember them as being a boss and a summon from Final Fantasy X. I remember having a lot of trouble fighting the Dark Magus Sisters in FF10, but they aren't too bad in this game. It's cool to see their first appearance was in FF4. Anyways, we defeat them and address Golbez about Rosa, but it turns out he lied and he's not going to give her back. Tella attacks Golbez on sight, casting Meteor on him that he learned from Mount Ordeals earlier. This severely weakens Golbez and dispels the mind control spell on Kane, but unfortunately takes a toll on Tella and he passes away. Golbez escapes with the crystal, which means he now has all 4 crystals of light in his possession. Kane takes Tella's place in the party and we rescue Rosa and head on out, but not before getting ambushed by the 3rd elemental lord, Barbara, the Lord of Wind. This boss wasn't too difficult, and after we win, we learn that there are 4 additional crystals, the Dark Crystals, and that's Golbez's next move. If he gets all 4 Dark Crystals and all 4 Light Crystals, then he can open up a portal to the moon, which could possibly contain a source of immense power. We set our next destination for the Underworld, and the trophy pops. Next we get Rookie and Veteran Treasure Hunter for collecting 10% and 50% of all treasure chests. Similar to FF3, these are hidden very well in some cases. Now we get to the Depths for arriving in the Underworld. Now we need to get the Dark Crystals before Golbez. After defeating Barbara, the Lord of Wind, Kane gives us a magma rock to open a path to the Underworld. We use the rock in the small town of Agart, and it creates a massive hole in the ground, allowing us to fly into the Underworld. Somehow, Golbez and the Red Wings beat us here, and our airship gets shot down. So, we're forced to land next to the Dwarven Kingdom for help, and the trophy pops. After that, we get another story trophy, Inflamed Anger. Defeat Rubicante, the Lord of Fire. After arriving at the Dwarven Castle, the King Dwarf Giat tells us that Golbez has already taken 2 of the Dark Crystals, so we go back to check on the crystal they do still have, and we catch Golbez and his dolls red-handed in the act stealing the crystal. We attack them, and he almost defeats us until our old friend Rydia shows up to save the day. We beat Golbez once again, and the party notices Rydia is much older now. She was just a child when we lost her earlier in the shipwreck Leviathan caused. She tells us that Leviathan took her to the land of the summoners, and she learned a lot from them. Time passes faster in the land of summons, so now she's much older and can cast much more powerful spells. While we're talking to her, Golbez uses this distraction to take the crystal and teleport out. Man, he just won't die, will he? We return to the dwarves and tell them the crystal is lost. He tells us that we must immediately head to the Tower of Babel again, but this time from the Underworld entrance. He tells us to reclaim the 7 lost crystals while his army of tanks distracts Golbez's Red Wings. Here we fight Dr. Luge, but he tells us that the last Elemental Lord, Rubicante, Lord of Fire, has already taken the crystals to the surface world, and that all the dwarves in the Underworld will be annihilated with cannons he set up in the tower. We go to the cannons, but we are too late and forced to escape in our airship. Yang sacrifices himself to give us a chance to escape, and we meet back up with Sid in the airship and get chased by the Red Wings. Sid jumps off the airship as we go back to the surface world and seals the entrance with a bomb to secure us a safe exit. We get out safely and head for the surface world entrance to the Tower of Babel to confront Rubicante and the crystals. We meet with Edge along the way, a ninja, and also the Prince of Eblan, whose parents were murdered by Rubicante. And together, we take out the evil Elemental Lord, and the trophy pops. Next we get Sword of Myth for obtaining the Excalibur. The first step is to retrieve the rat tail from the Land of Summons, which is located in a chest. We can then bring this tail to a man in the Adamant Cave in exchange for Adamantite, and after that, we must return to the Underworld and visit the blacksmith, give him the Adamantite, and wait for him to craft it. We speak to him again, and he gives us the sword, and the trophy pops. And after that, we get to the moon for obtaining the lunar whale and landing on the moon. So after we defeated Rubicante in the Tower of Babel, we're now stuck in the Underworld with our ship stranded in the surface world. The lunar whale is a massive ship that can fly us to the moon, but in order to obtain it, we have to return to Mysidia in the surface world. Luckily, we are able to steal an enemy airship from the Underworld and return to the Dwarven Kingdom, where we find Sid, who somehow survived jumping off the airship into the lava. Edge calls him an old geezer, and they share some funny dialogue. Sid upgrades our new airship to allow us to fly over the lava now, which allows us to get to the sealed cave, which is the location of the final Dark Crystal. We have to get there before Golbez does. We fight our way through the cave, and at the end fight a demon wall. I remember fighting these in Final Fantasy XII. I absolutely love that game. I always love seeing references from previous games and the newer ones. We grab the crystal and head out, but Golbez mind controls Cain again and uses him to take the final crystal from us and open the portal to the moon. Not knowing what to do, we return to Sid, and it turns out Sid pushed himself too far after fixing our ship and he passed away. Never mind, actually he was just sleeping. Final Fantasy IV does this a lot in this game, and at this point I don't know if I find it funny or annoying, and he attaches a drill to our airship, which allows us to drill our way out of the Underworld and back to the surface. We return to Mysidia, speak to the Elder, and he summons a lunar whale for us, allowing us to travel to the moon, and the trophy pops. Next, we get Rematch for defeating the 4 Elemental Lords again. We fought these 4 bosses before, but now it's time to fight them all again, and at the same time. Using the lunar whale airship we got, we fly to the moon and meet our newest party member, Mr. Fusoya. He is a wise and powerful Lunarian who has been observing the events on Earth for thousands of years and possesses advanced knowledge of magic and technology, making him a valuable ally. He explains that the Lunarians have had a long history of observing and influencing the planet of Earth. Fusoya's purpose is to safeguard the Lunarian race and prevent a catastrophic clash between the Lunarians and the people of Earth. He reveals Golbez is being mind controlled by a Lunarian named Zemus, who is using his powers to influence the inhabitants of Earth to collect the crystals so he can activate the dimensional elevator in the giant robot of Babel so he can destroy the world. He also tells us that his brother Kluya is the one who created the lunar whale ship we used, and Kluya used it to travel to Earth and had 2 children, one of which is Cecil. This was an interesting little plot twist, but who was the other child Kluya had? I guess we'll find out later. We leave the moon with Fusoya to stop Golbez from activating the giant robot of Babel, but unfortunately we're too late and Golbez activates Optimus Prime here. The dwarves and Sid distract the robot while we make our way inside of it to shut it down. It is here where we encounter the 4 elemental lords again from earlier for a rematch. We have to fight Scarmillion, Cagnazzo, Barbara, and Rubicante in order, but this time they're all powered up, making for a relatively long boss fight. Each of them are weak to a certain school of magic, so I take advantage of that, take them out, and the trophy pops. Next we get Summon Master for learning all non-secret summon magic. There's only one more main quest to finish the game, but first it's time to complete the side content. First thing we need to do is learn all the non-secret summon magic. This includes Asura, Leviathan, Sylph, Bahamut, and Odin. Asura and Leviathan are found in the Lands of the Summoned, where Rydia went earlier. It's located in the Underworld deep within a cave. Asura was very easy. I just cast Reflect on her and she puts her buffs on my party instead of herself, while the rest of my party attacks. Once she is defeated, Rydia learns the ability to summon Asura. Leviathan was also easy. It will cast Tidal Wave and hit your entire party, but I used Rosa to out-heal the damage. Luckily it is weak to thunder and goes down quickly, and we learn the summon. For the Sylph summon, we have to wake up Yang and get him to rejoin our party. After we lost Yang in the Tower of Babel, he wound up in the Sylvan Cottage where the fairies live and are taking care of him. He is stuck in a coma, and the only way to wake him up is by getting the frying pan from his wife back in Castle Fabul and use it on him. He wakes up and the fairies are so grateful they give us the Sylph summon. Bahamut is located in the Cave of Bahamut and only spawns after arriving on the moon for the first time. Despite his fearsome appearance, this boss goes down quickly. I just spam Flare and summon Leviathan until he's defeated, and he gives us his summon, which is extremely powerful and can cast Mega Flare. Lastly, we battle Odin, which is located inside of Castle Baron in the basement. This fight was interesting because it was timed. Kinda reminds me of the Emerald weapon from Final Fantasy VII, except this one is much shorter. I just used my hardest hitting attacks and summoned Bahamut with Rydia, and we beat him to learn the last summon and the trophy pops. After all that, we get Item Detector for obtaining all hidden items. Similar to the last game, these are separate from treasure chests. They are only found in towns and castles and are hidden in things such as pots or plants. There are 54 hidden items and none of them are missable, thankfully. We get the last hidden item in this bookcase and the trophy pops. Adventurous Wayfarer traveled to all the map locations. This time there are 48 map locations, most of which are optional and easy to miss. We get this when we travel to the final dungeon of the game, the Lunar Subterrane. Seasoned Hero, reach level 70 for all party members. I got this by the time I got to the final dungeon. Power Unleashed, obtained all sealed equipment. In the final dungeon, Lunar Subterrane, there are 4 sealed weapons found throughout the dungeon, which are also the best weapons for Cecil, Cain, and Edge. The first one we get is Murasame for defeating a dragon. Then we get Ragnarok for fighting Dark Bahamut. And right after that, we get the Holy Lance for defeating this one-eye guy. And after we obtain the final weapon, Masamune, the trophy pops. Legendary Treasure Hunter. This is for collecting treasure from 100% of the chests. We get this right after getting the last trophy inside the final dungeon. Now for the final story trophy, To the Blue Planet. This is for defeating Zeromus and restoring peace to the world. Zeromus is the final boss and he is no pushover. The culmination of our hard work has come to a peak and it's time to free the world from Zeromus' grasp. Zeromus casts Meteor on everyone and takes us out. In an epic finale, all our friends we made along the way come to our aid and resurrect us. We defeat Zeromus, and it's revealed that Golbez is Cluia's other son, aka Cecil's brother. Golbez and Cecil forgive each other and say their goodbyes as Golbez and Fusoya head back to the moon. Then we get a wholesome montage of all the characters in the game and where they are now. Palom and Parom got rescued from Stone and continue studying magic in Mysidia. Prince Edge becomes the king of Eblan and falls in love with Rydia. Rydia goes back to the land of summons to be with her people. Yang becomes the king of Fabul after his heroic actions and the former king steps down. Edward also becomes the king of Demesia and mourns the loss of his fiancée Anna. The dwarves repair the castle using the scraps of the tank they used in battle because there's no longer a need to worry about war anymore. Cain becomes a recluse and trains at Mount Ordeals until he can bring himself to face Cecil and Rosa after he betrayed them twice. And lastly, Cecil and Rosa become the king and queen of Baron as they are visited by all their friends and the game ends. This really makes me want to play the sequel to this game, The After Years, just to see what happens after that. But that'll be for another time. For defeating the final boss, we also get Field Research Professional for completing 100% of the bestiary. Now we just need 2 more trophies and the platinum will be ours. The first one is Tail of Myth for exchanging the pink tail for the adamant armor. To get the pink tail, we have to farm princess plants that have a 1 in 64 chance of spawning inside the lunar subterranean dungeon, and they have a 1 in 64 chance of dropping that pink tail. Luckily, there is a way around this in the Pixel Remaster. We can go to the Naming Way cave on the moon, and they sell unlimited sirens, which is an item when used, puts you in battle against the most rare spawn enemy in the area. In other words, when we use a siren in this room, we'll have a 100% chance of engaging in a battle versus a flan princess, and we can fight up to 5 of them at the same time. This trophy took a bit of farming, but I finally got one to drop after a few hours, and you have to take it to the same guy who gave us the adamantite for the Excalibur. We give him the pink tail, he gives us the adamant armor, which is the best armor in the game. It gives plus 15 to all stats, and is resistant to all elements and status effects, and the trophy pops. Now for the final trophy, Summon Collector. This is for finding and learning all the secret summon magic. This is separate from the non-secret summon magic we got earlier. This was by far the worst trophy, it took a lot of grinding. There are 4 secret summons, and they all have a 1 in 64 chance to drop from the enemies you fight, which are the Goblin, Cockatrice, Mind Flayer, and Bomb. I already had the Bomb from earlier from a lucky drop. The other ones took me hundreds of kills, especially the Goblin, but after a few hours I got the summons to drop. I learned the summons from the inventory and the trophy pops. And we also get the platinum here. In conclusion, this game improved on its predecessors in nearly every way. There is a gripping story with real characters with real motives. The world feels far more alive than previous entries. Rosa and Sid have homes in the village of Baron. The NPCs respond to Cecil as the Red Baron captain when you talk to them. There is a mix of people believing in the king and doubting him. Cecil's role as a Dark Knight has a purpose, and it shapes him as a character when he leaves the dark side and becomes a paladin. Each character you play as has a unique job, and each of them has a place in the world of Final Fantasy IV. The music is again fantastic, as you would expect with any Final Fantasy game. Each soundtrack is placed perfectly in the game and gives you a wide range of emotions that the developers wanted you to feel. Just to be clear, this isn't a port, it is a remaster. Everything is modernized and makes it a much more enjoyable experience, so overall, I think the remaster is good. It isn't perfect and likely won't please everyone, but I think it's a great reason to play Final Fantasy IV again, or even for new players like myself. Overall, I'll recommend this version of the game if you didn't experience Final Fantasy IV before. If you want a more difficult version of this game, you can always go for the 3D version or the original. In any case, you can always decide which version to pick, or both if you feel like it. So, was Final Fantasy IV any good? I rate it a spoony bard out of 10.